So homework, I'll describe homework 1 and then I'll go into Excel and Stata. So homework 1, you'll be able to download a Word document. This Word document is on the website. So homework exercise 1, basically it's this. You kind of want to, you can either find some data that you're interested in. It could be something like, I'm very interested in the COVID project, that in the partnership between the COVID project and the Center for Anti-Racism Studies at Washington, no, where is it at? Is it American University? It's somewhere in Washington, D.C., done by Imbermex Kendi. Part of his anti-racism project is been pushing places to give more data on racial inequality, and he's partnering with the COVID project, getting more states to disaggregate their COVID case numbers by race. Let's say you want to work with that. If you want to work with, you know, do some state data and how it's related to race. Whatever it is, you find an area of study, either use a few observations of your own or just make up data of something that's interesting to you. And you're going to make an Excel worksheet that I'll show you an example here in just a minute. And it needs to have a couple of different types of variables. One is a unique identifier. So let's say you're doing person data. It needs to have a unique identifier, made up social security numbers or made up ID numbers. And it's going to have a combination of categorical and continuous variables, which I'll explain in a minute. You put this in Excel. You can bring it into Stata. I'll show you this process too. And in both, you can do just a little bit of description with it. We're not getting anywhere too deep into some of the heavier statistical or mathematical functions, but I'll show you those in a moment. And that's basically what you're doing. You're going to go through this experience, inputting data, making sure you got the categorical and continuous differences down. Again, that's explained in the books. And then you describe the data and kind of describe your experience with it. One thing that I'd like you to start emphasizing, even though this is kind of a little project, maybe with made up data, start creating in yourself the habit of professional presentation, which is part of the process of communicating data and communicating scientifically in a very responsible way. So this is just one of those habits. And I'm bringing this in from something that Dr. Anderson has been asking his students to do for a long time. And I think it's important. In the past, I would not be pushing that, but I think since this is an introductory class, I see the importance of it. And so it could be that you get through the data real fast, but it may take you more time to make it fancy. But the fancy part is good. And I have a template in there on the website. So I'll just show that real quick, where you download all this stuff on the website. So I'm on the week 1 page again. Sorry if I'm going too fast here, but under the homework assignment, there's the Microsoft Word document with the instructions. I put those in Word. If you want to print them off and take them, it's a little bit easier that. And there's a cover page template for you to use to get you going in your presentation of that. So you'll put all that together in one document and you'll upload that document to D2L. And that's what your first homework assignment will be. Again, I understand people may be traveling, people may not have their computing environments set up. If you're going to be late on this first one, just let me know. Let me know. But what we want to do is be able to discuss. Okay, it may after I do this quick presentation, everything may sound easy, categorical, continuous, Excel, Stata, beaming. You know, I'll go through it quick because I've been doing this stuff for a long time. You may get in the thick of it either this week or a later week, and it may be tricky. You'll be able to go back to the video, but we want to describe that whole experience. What were the hiccups? What are you not finished understanding? I like the idea, the term, I'm not finished understanding something yet, which means you're going to understand it and its process. And this was this was my favorite saying in Suriname. The people it was the Matawai tribe. And so the language I learned was Matawai, and the phrase was Makabi Kustanyati. Makabi Kustanyati. I'm not finished understanding this yet. And I had to use that all the time because I didn't know what was going on there. Just another aside is the people there gave me a baby name. This was tradition for the groups and across the Peace Corps volunteers and the groups we lived with, but they gave outsiders a baby name, basically a kid name, a Matawai baby name.
Yeah, this is like.
And my baby name, Putu Pai. They give you a baby name because, I mean, this was before all the Survivor, you know, I guess Survivor was the lone show for people going out in the jungle, but all these other shows, that didn't exist. But for me, I would have died faster than a baby in the jungle. So they knew I didn't know anything. So they give you a baby name and they raise you Matawai in a way. And and you go through kind of different ceremonies as you learn stuff. So it was very, very cool. So there's a lot I wasn't finished understanding yet in this process. Many of you won't be finished learning, but we want to document these processes. So next week we'll talk about the homework assignment. Okay. Any questions? Well, before I do questions, give it over questions to you. Let me go through the 2 points that you'll be doing in this. One is in Excel, either inputting data or coming up with a little bit of data, and then 2, putting it into Stata. So if unless there's an immediate question anybody wants to ask, I'll go into that. Any? Okay. So first, Excel. So I have this demo Excel sheet that y'all can download. And for your first exercise, I don't want much more data than this. Oops, this should say ID. Okay. I don't want, I mean, I think it says I only want, you only need to do about 10 observations. This has 20 observations. So this is a demonstration data set. So one thing, when you open up a sheet, and like I said, maybe some of y'all aren't so familiar with Microsoft Excel, but one thing I'd like y'all to be able to do is identify what does data look like, okay? We're starting from the ground level here, and I apologize to those that have worked with data, but this is our data here, okay? This is our data right here. Okay, and what do we know about this data? Well, the first thing we need to understand is what is a variable. Okay, a variable is an indicator that's measuring something. And how do we show our variables in Stata or Excel or SPSS or whatever is our variables go across these columns. Let me step back even one step further. The letters across here are our columns, right? These are columns. This is column A, column B. And the numbers going down are our rows, okay? Rows 3, 4, 5. Now, which of these are variables and which of these are observations? So that's two things we want to know. Observation versus variable. Well, our variable is the indicator that's measuring something, okay? So here we have our first variable is an ID. That's an indicator of the unique identification of somebody, okay? This is person one. Person one, this is that person's data. This is person 14. This is person 14's data. This data goes along with person 14. What's the data? Well, it's these other variables. So the variable in column B is a variable called CONT1. It's a continuous variable. What's a continuous variable? Well, a continuous variable, as you'll read in the book, is a numerical variable that can span across a large range. It could be in decimals, or it could range to very large numbers. Here, this one looks something like an age. We could say it's age. Maybe in your data, this will be age. So instead of continuous one, you might be measuring age. So let's go back before we go forward. How old is person number one? Person number one's 37 years old. Okay, person number 3 is 54 years old. Okay, age is ranging from 23 to 24 to people in their 50s. Okay, and it can continue, it's continuous. It could be increments of 1, or if you get even more specific, you could, sometimes in Stata you have by the day, age by the day. So it'd be, it'd be a decimal. Okay. So this is our first variable is ID, our second variable is age. This variable is called cat-1. This is a categorical variable. Now, unlike a continuous variable, which can have a big range, whatever this variable is measuring, it's taking the form of just a few things. H, L, or M. I don't know, maybe, what could this be? Let's call it temperature, or no, let's call it, it's high, medium, and low. I don't know what it is, okay? But it's some variable that we're just capturing 3 categories. You're either low, medium, or high, okay? Maybe this could be income levels, okay? Let's call it that. Income level. Maybe that's something you're capturing in your data that you're making up. So now look, this is interesting, right? I could have income. What if I had income where someone's making $20,000, someone's making $50,000, someone's making $51,000? Would our measure of income, how we're capturing income, would it still be categorical? No, it'd be continuous. But how we're measuring it here is in 3 categories: low, medium, or high. Okay, that's a categorical variable. Now this is important because, as we'll see, the statistics we can do with a continuous variable is different from the statistics we can do with a categorical variable. Okay, here we have another categorical variable, except it's not in numerical categories. Sorry, it's not in alphabetical categories, L, M, H. It's in some kind of numerical category. Perhaps this is one. Have y'all all answered surveys where they may think of your satisfaction with a course. Maybe this is your satisfaction with Dr. Vick. Now, person 1 gave me a level 3. They're kind of lukewarm about Dr. Vick's class. Person 4 is, or sorry, person 2 is 35. Maybe they're high level income, and they're giving me a thumbs up. They're level 4 with satisfaction with my class. Person 7 doesn't like me. 36 years old, median income, and they think this all sucks. Okay, I hope y'all aren't in that category. All right, I'm coming up with potential interpretations, but this could be a survey answer. Okay, so we're getting people's age, we're maybe getting their income levels, and we're getting some other indicator. Here's another continuous variable that seems to be ranging from 1 to 20. Here's another continuous variable that has a range as well. Okay, so what y'all are doing is the first thing you're doing is either taking data from somewhere or you're coming up with your own data as a combination of categorical and continuous variables. And your variable names should be indicated in this top part of the data, okay? Okay. Let me give you one other, okay. All right, so that's kind of part number 1. We'll go into this piece more later, but I want you to be able to start thinking about what you do with Excel, what you do with this data, okay? And what we have here are a number of Excel commands. Just as an aside, if y'all could give me a yes, no under the participation thing or a hands up, how many of y'all have worked, yes or no, you've worked quite a bit with Excel before? Yes or no, you've worked quite a bit with Excel before? Okay. So I'm getting a good percentage of you, maybe 70, 80%, but not everybody, okay? And you never stop learning from Excel, and there's always three ways to do something in Excel, so that makes it hard. So bear with me. For those who haven't worked with it as much, let me know if this is not helpful. There's lots of online resources to help you go through it. So what do we want to do with this, this data? Okay. We want to be able to calculate some of these either statistical functions, mean, median, mode, average, which we'll get into what these mean later, but I want to show you how to do them now. Or these mathematical functions, or perhaps even these logical functions, okay? And I just want to introduce them here, and then we'll get into them more. So one thing you can do is one other piece of Excel that I want to introduce you to. So I have some of these statistical and mathematical functions down here. And then I'm starting to calculate some of them right here. Okay, so one type of thing you can do in Excel is input your data, which this data has been input. 37 years old, high income, level 3 satisfaction. Another thing you can do with Excel is instead of just inputting the number, so typing in a 37 here, you can input a formula, okay? You can input a formula. So let's say you want to add up everybody's age. I don't know why you'd want to do it, but let's say you want to add up everybody's age. That's the sum of it. So the sum of ages, I would type equal sum, because this is my mathematical function that I'm going to be dealing with here, or that may be the one I happen to want. Sum is telling Stata, you're going to add up all these numbers. Which numbers do you want it to do? You add a parentheses, and then you highlight. One way to do it is to highlight all the numbers you want to add up, and then you press enter. So the sum of all these numbers is 796. So there's 796 years total in this data set. That's the interpretation. Okay. I'll skip down. What's maybe more important for us to know rather than adding up people's years? Well, perhaps a more important one would be the mean or the average. Maybe we want to know what's the average age in my data set. Okay, I'm just going down here. You could put it anywhere, but I'll go here. We want to learn the mean. So I'm going to type in mean, or actually I want to do average. Instead of sum, I'm going to do the average of all these numbers. And Excel is going to spit out a number, 39.8. Well, being able to understand what Stata spits out is part of your job. And the job is, in my data set of this many people, the average age is 39.8 years. Okay. Maybe I want to know how many people are in my data set. Well, it's easy to kind of figure out here. And like I said, there's a lot of different ways to skin this cat with Excel. I can highlight these IDs, and you get down here, the count is 20. So I have 20 people. By the way, if I highlight age without doing anything else, it tells me the average, 39.8. It tells me the count and the sum. So your version of Excel likely does that as well. Okay, but what if I want to do it in a different way? What if I want to actually count these? What if I have hundreds? It's not as easy anymore. But what I would do is equal, count, and then I could highlight any of these, but I'll highlight the ID. So ID maybe it should indicate it's unique. How many unique people do I have? Or how many observations do I have? Well, I have 20. What did I do? Equals, count, and then I highlight what I want to count. Okay. I'm not going to get it. We'll come back to this Excel spreadsheet. I'm not going to do standard deviation or variance yet. But I want to do one other. What if I want to just count, let's say, the low income people in this data set? I want to count the observation if they are low income. That person indicates that they are low income. It's a count if something happens. The logical function here is called count if. And I have that here. So what I'm going to do is equal count if. And I'm going to highlight the range. I'm counting this number, this group of people, if they are low income. And so low is indicated by the letter L. And so I have to tell it in quotes, Excel, look for who has the letter L. And so you put a quote with it, big L, end quote. Okay. And it tells me there are 6 people here that have indicated low income. And what we can do is let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one thing I did is I'm using a Mac. I held down the command key and highlighted these. So there are 6 L's in my data set. Well, this counted them for me. Okay. So I've gone a bit further than what we need to know now. All right. But this is enough to get you started with Excel. Okay. Now let me move to, so what are you supposed to do in Excel? You're supposed to kind of come up with an idea for some variables. Some are continuous. Some are categorical. The categories can either be in letters or numbers. Okay. If you want to do a few things with a continuous variable, a mean is a good start. If you want to do some things with your categorical variables, your mean of your categorical variables may not make much sense. I can't do an average of H's and L's and M's, but I can count different ones, okay? So I could count it if it's high income, low income, for example, all right? So the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to input this data into Stata. So Stata doesn't want to see all this other stuff. This stuff I have here, these are notes for you. This stuff I have down here, that's also notes for you, and we'll come back to them. What Stata wants is just the data, okay? It wants the variables across here and the data, the observations going down. So in my case, I have these variables and I have 20 observations, 20 different individuals. So what I'm going to do, and there's too many ways to do this. I'm going to copy this data, and I do that. You would do it with Control C, or I'm highlighting this data and you copy it, Control C. Mac users use Command C. And I'm going to create a new worksheet. Okay. So let me show you my new worksheet. And I'm going to create a clean data set with Control V or Command V. And that pastes my data right here. So what's the difference between this worksheet and the previous one? This one doesn't have all the notes. And column A1, row 1 is my column headers, ID, age, income, etc. And then going down, I have my observations and I don't have any other notes, right? I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go to File, Save As. Actually, before I do that, let me share my whole desktop, which my desktop is a mess. All right, there's everybody looking at me and looking at themselves. So I'm saving this desktop. Another piece that I'd like you to kind of get in the process of doing is making folders for yourself. So good folder maintenance for this. So good folder maintenance is something like on your desktop having session week 1, okay? And I'm going to save this as demo.xlsx, my spreadsheet here. And so I've saved this data, this Excel file. So let me just repeat that. One other good habit is perhaps having a data folder for each session or week of this class. And as I give you data, all these files that I've already given you, the Word file, this Excel file, save them to a subfolder for this class. So you might have a folder for SOC 762, and then you have a subfolder for week 1, and you start saving your stuff there. And then you can save your file that you're going to be working on there. Okay. Last piece, I have 10 minutes left. Let's get that file into Stata so you can do the last part of your homework. So I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to go to Stata. So I'm using Stata version 14. The department hasn't given me the latest version, but for the purpose of our class, it's not going to matter. Okay, Stata versions start really changing, for more advanced statistical procedures. So the way I'll show you now, in the easiest way, since we've already input our data into Excel and we've saved the data as a clean Excel file, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to file. Okay, let me step back for a second. What's going on here in this program? It's a mess, isn't it? Well, hopefully when you open Stata, you'll see a few windows. You'll see the results window here. You have a variables window here. Now, since I don't have anything, I don't have any data in Stata. It's a blank thing, so I have no variables. I have properties down here, and then I have a command history. I played with this a little bit, so you see I already have some commands. If you open this straight up, you won't have any command history. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, and I encourage you to do it this way, kind of the steps I'm showing. Put your data into Excel, and then you're going to import that Excel spreadsheet. Okay. So this window, oh man, I'm going to have to show you the whole thing again. Show you my desktop. Okay, can everybody see my full desktop here?
Yep.
Okay. So I have my Stata windows I just showed, and then I imported Excel, and it brings up this import Excel sub window. So you have to tell it where you found it or where you saved it. So here I have my week 1 subfolder, and there's my demo Excel SX. Okay. And that's what I'm going to open. So the next piece is important. Okay. You want to make sure you check off this box. What it's doing here is it's saying, I'm going to bring in this data. But what's the problem with this? Well, it's thinking, it's going to think that row 1 is, it's going to think this, my variable names are data, but they're not data. They're the variable names. So you have to tell Stata to import my first row as a variable name. So look at the difference here. Now it's showing that ID, age, this is kind of like what it looks like in Excel. If you unclick that, that it's going to think observation 1 is your data names, but it's not. So you want to import the first row as a variable name. Okay. And you click OK. And what that did was I used the drop-down menu in Stata to run a command that I could have done on my own. Okay. So Stata started off as a text-based kind of inputting your commands software package, but they've expanded all these drop-down menus. So the drop-down menu makes it easy so you don't have to type this in. The drop-down menu gives you the command for later. Okay. Now, do I know if it worked? Did it import the data? Well, over here, the variables, it was empty before, but now it has the variables I've named from Excel: ID, age, income level, satisfaction with Dr. Vick. And then I didn't name those other 2. Okay. Let me show you a couple more things. Once the data is in Stata, you can go either to Data Editor or Data Browser. Data Browser lets you look at that data. And as you look, what do we have here? We have 20 observations, just like we did before. We have our variable names, just like we did before. You see income levels red. Why is that? Well, that's the case because it's letters. It's a string variable. It's not continuous. It's not numerical. It's a string. So this should look kind of like what we had in Excel. And one other thing, the variable window here, we won't get into this format stuff yet. It's in it's in your general introduction. But income level, the one that's low, medium, or high, L, M, or H, Stata is seeing it as a string variable indicated by this S here. Okay, but that's advanced. We don't have to get into that too much. Okay. Last thing, what I ask you to do on the website is to be able to run a couple of commands. Okay. So let me point these out to you. Okay. I have my data in. I've verified that my data looks like what I input into Stata. The first command we can do is DECS for description. Okay, I type that into my command window. And then I hit enter, and Stata describes the data. It tells me how many observations I have, 20. How many variables do I have? 6 different variables. It tells me all the variable names and what they are. This is a byte. Again, income level, low MH, low, medium, high is a string variable. Okay, so that's the first command I asked you to do. The second one is codebook, which I don't personally use that much, but it's good to know because it gives you a bunch of statistical details about these variables. So let's go to age. It tells you the range. Much easier than I was able to do off the bat in Excel. It tells me my age range is actually from 23 to 58. I have 19 different ages. So that means out of 20 observations, 19 of them are a different age. Oh, look here. It told me the mean, 39.8, which I did in Excel. Deviation, percentiles, etc. Okay. Look at income level, which is a string. It does another nice thing. It tells me how many unique values I have. 3, low, medium, high. And then it tells me, remember how I had to go through all that Countif BS? And I found out that if it's L, it counts it as 6. Well, this did it just for me in the code book. There's 9 high income people, 6 low income people, 5 medium income people. So in code book is a pretty nice command, and so on and so forth. Summarize is another one. That kind of summarize just gave me this littler table here that gives me mean, standard deviation, min and max. Okay. Let me do one last thing. In Excel, we found the mean of age. In Stata, we can do the same thing. I type mean age. So note, age has to be typed in exactly like it is in its variable name. I type mean age, and it tells me that the mean is 39.8, okay? So there's lots of different ways to do that. I give you a few more commands on the website that you can play around with, but this is basically what you have to do for homework. Input the data in Excel, make up data, find a couple of categorical, couple of continuous, whatever it says in the homework, bring it into Excel, bring it into Stata, describe that data, make the code book, and then be able to talk about this process. Okay.